So we all read Jason Redman's book, Overcome. Jason's going to be joining us next Tuesday. For those of you who don't know, Jason is a very famous Navy SEAL. If you don't know his backstory, if you haven't read the book, still come and talk to him and meet him on the 19th. You're going to absolutely love it. The book that we're reading this month is Radical Candor by Kim Scott, New York Times best-selling author. She's going to be joining us on May 3rd. On May 10th, we have Alacia Abate, who's going to be joining us. I think, Jess, I think you know her. I could be wrong. She's amazing. She's a futurist. Yeah. On May 17th, we have Stephanie Malik, who's an amazing CEO. And then I'll give you a sneak preview. In May, we're reading Deanne Turner's book called Bet on Talent. And Deanne was the head of talent for Chick-fil-A for 30 years. So she is absolutely off the charts. I wanted to make a quick announcement too. Randy Ostra, Randy, wave. Randy has joined the Talent Champions Council actually as an employee, and he is our community development manager, and he's here to optimize your membership value. So you may be hearing from Randy and you're like, boy, this is a really enthusiastic member. So now you'll know he is an enthusiastic member, and that's how we got talking. He's been a member pretty much since day one, and we got talking about his excitement for what we're building here with the Talent Champions Council, and he's decided to come over and help us to continue to grow. So today is another Conversations with Legends series. For those of you who are brand new, the format is Jess and I are going to spend maybe about 30 minutes or so chatting. And then the last 30 minutes is for live Q&A. So what you do is you don't have to ask your question in the chat. Just say, I have a question, and then Kathy will let me know and we'll tee you up, and you can ask your question directly to the absolutely amazing Jess Ekstrom. So for those of you who may not know Jess, which seems almost impossible,
it's possible.
She's the CEO and chairwoman of Headbands of Hope, which I'm obsessed about. She's the best-selling author of this book, which I wish you could really see it. It's so beat up. I've read it so many times. It's called Chasing the Bright Side. It's all about optimism. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. She's been featured on Good Morning America, the Today Show. She's been on The View. She's been in People Magazine. She's been on QVC. I mean, you name it, ridiculous. She's the co-founder and CEO of Prompt.io, which I think we'll also talk about. She's an unbelievable keynote speaker. And she's the founder of Mic Drop Workshop, which I think we'll probably also talk about. So she, like Mayan, spent 3 years traveling around with her husband, Jake, and her dog, Ollie, in an Airstream. We may get into that. But, when I think of you, Jess, I think of you as kind of like a modern day entrepreneur. So I think entrepreneurs in general are highly, highly ambitious, which obviously you are. You've got like a million things going on. But I think what makes you kind of a modern day entrepreneur is your dedication to a social mission, the fact that you are ambitious, but you keep things fun and lighthearted, and you are hysterically funny, like you always make me laugh, and you're unwilling to compromise. And I love that about just the way that you live your life. What I was hoping that we could start off with is to give people a little bit of a backstory. Tell us a little bit about Renee and how she changed your life when you were back in college.
Yeah. Man, well, thank you first for all of those.
Oh, Jess, you're frozen.
Am I still here?
Oh, now you're good. You're back. And now, there we go.
This is weird. I was having a Zoom call before this and it was fine. Am I on or is it frozen?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. I'll get started, and if it's bad, I'll go to my phone and see what's going on here.
Okay.
It's not working?
Yeah, you keep keep freezing. I'm not sure why.
Weird. Okay, hold on. Let me come on my phone really quick. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves. Teddy, how's what is this, day one of entrepreneurship?
It's officially week 2. It is
week 2.
It's unofficially month 3. But yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. If you guys don't know Teddy, get to know him, support him. He's amazing. His wife, Lindsay, is amazing. Just started his own business, has child number 2 on the way. So all exciting stuff.
I appreciate it, Scott. I don't usually love the spotlight, but I appreciate the comments and yeah, please do reach out. I'd love to see how I can support y'all.
And I call him a North Carolina Tar Heel legend.
He is, and apologies for the national championship. I don't know if we have any Kansas fans on the phone.
Oh, Ryan Coleman, I might have to leave now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, if we all want to say Rock Chalk Jayhawk, let's get after it.
Y'all would be nothing without Roy Williams, so I'll give you that much.
Hey, I was really interested to see how he was going, what his attire was going to be at that game. It was very much North Carolina.
All right, guys, Jess is back. Jess.
Wait, but are we talking about a Carolina Blue School? Because I went to NC State, so I don't know if this is going to work. No.
This could be painful. This could be painful. We were talking about Teddy played baseball at UNC, and he's licking his wounds about the national championship. So,
well, we can be friends. Yeah,
I'll give you a pass, Jess.
Yeah, we can agree that we don't like Duke, so we can move on from this.
Exactly. We can all be friends. We can all be friends.
Exactly.
So I think we're going to get into your relationship with Renee and really how she changed your life, and then all the amazing things that happened to you after that.
So when I was in college at NC State, go Pack, I was interning for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And when I was there, I, wasn't doing the most glamorous things. I wasn't organizing galas or like calling Taylor Swift. I was doing a lot of behind the scenes work, but it was the first time, in my life, and maybe one of you can relate to this, where it didn't matter like what I was doing in the moment, because I was so clearly connected to why I was doing it. And so I wanted to chase that feeling. I wanted to do something that I could connect the dots as to why I was doing it. And so one of the things that happened towards the end of my internship was I was asked to coordinate a wish. And her name was Renee, and she was 4 years old, and her wish was to go to Disney World to meet Sleeping Beauty. And I planned this going away party for her and all of her friends that was princess themed. I planned her whole itinerary while she was there in Disney World. And unfortunately, about a week before she was scheduled to go on her wish, her cancer took a pretty bad turn. And the doctors, said that she was too sick to go on her wish, and that she unfortunately couldn't fly or drive to Disney World. And it was one of those moments where I was like, this can't be the story, this can't be how this goes. And we have these experiences in our life that we can't control. We can't control the weather, we can't control if our flight gets in on time, but our story is how we internalize and respond to our experiences. And so I called some local costume shops, and a few hours later, I arrived on her doorstep, dressed as Sleeping Beauty, and tried to make her wish come true that day. And I brought her a matching dress and a crown that said Princess Renee, and read her the story of Sleeping Beauty, and spent the whole day with her and her family in character. She totally bought it. And it was like just one of the clearest before and after moments of my life. And she was wearing a headband that day. And I realized a lot of kids that were losing their hair to chemotherapy would be offered wigs or hats, but opted to wear headbands. And no one was providing headbands. And so I call it the dumbest, smartest moment of my life, where I was like, I could do that, being 19 years old, having no clue what I was in for. And so junior year of college, Headbands of Hope was born. Here we are, 10 years, a 10-year anniversary will be in next week, which is crazy. And over 1 million headbands donated, reaching every hospital in America in 22 countries now.
Absolutely unbelievable. So, what you built with Headbands of Hope is unbelievable. I think a through line throughout your career has been this reliance on optimism. And you talk in the book about treating optimism like a muscle. Talk to us a little bit about, optimism, the role that it's played in your life, and, really it's the central theme of the book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so many of us, when we hear the word optimism, a lot of times we think of it as like a mood or toxic positivity, just be happy, just like, look at the bright side. And what I wanted to do with this book is help people understand that optimism isn't a mood, it's a strategy. And optimism is actually born in the tough times. When we think of optimism, we think of all the good, but hard times, like that time that I had with Renee, hard times give us a choice. They can be the excuse as to why we do less, or they can be the reason as to why we do more. So if you think about any great movement or like any great change that has happened, the Me Too movement or Black Lives Matter, anything big in history, none of those things began when times were good, because when times are good, why change? You don't fix something that isn't broken. But when times are tough, that's when optimism breeds innovators, creators, philanthropists, entrepreneurs, because these are the people that are trying to make things better. And so what I wanted to do with Chasing the Bright Side is show like, how can we train that optimism muscle? And even though, I'm the author, I'm not a natural optimist. And it was something I had to teach myself. And I think oftentimes I saw some of the books that you all are reading. I think oftentimes most people teach what they once had to learn that doesn't come natural to them. So that's definitely optimism for me.
So I was going to ask you one of my favorite quotes in the book, and I'm going to say it again because I was actually going to ask it as a question, but Jess already brought it up, and really think about these words. Hard times are either the excuse to do less or the reason to do more. I thought that as a takeaway from the book, or even from today, like if you really think about that, there's so much power in those words. Jess, in chapter 8, which is, I think, called You're Not Tall Enough, you talk about asking for the ball. What does that mean to you? Tell us a little bit about that chapter. I loved it.
Well, I think that so much of opportunity that we get, we have to call for it. We have to ask for it. I wish that people knocked on my door and said, hey, do you need $1 million to do your latest startup? That would be great. I'm Unfortunately, that's not happening. And so I talk about, how playing sports as a kid, and I know we have some athletes in here. It was like, you have to call for the ball if you want it. And so even like my speaking career, I was, 21 years old when I started speaking, which is like crazy to me. I'm like, what was I talking about? But I had to say, hey, I'm a speaker. I would love to be considered for your next event. And then that's what eventually actually led me to start Mic Drop Workshop, is because a lot of women, weren't putting their name in the hats for speaking engagements or speaking opportunities. It was like, I was at a conference one time for meeting planners, and there was a panel, and there was like a really big company that was on this panel. And they were like, look, we want to hire more women speakers, but they're only 12% of our applications. So Mic Drop Workshop, of course, teaches women the nuts and bolts of speaking, but really it's just about calling for the ball, putting your name in the hat for opportunities. I still to this day, will put my name in the hat for stuff and not get it, but you just kind of learn that failure will always feel better than regret. And that's another thing I talk about in the book that I try to live by.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So, I mean, we've already talked about two of your businesses. You've got another business that I think is super cool. I think we hear about journaling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people talk about the benefits of journaling. So you started because you didn't have enough to do. You're like, well, how about this idea about prompted.io? Tell us a little bit about that and what journaling has done for you.
Yeah, well, I'm curious. Let me know in the chat. Do we have any journalers here? What is your system? Morning? Are you digital? Are you hand? I want to hear what all of you do as well. Or really how you organize your thoughts. That's what I'm curious about, because it was something I struggled with. And I know it sounds like kind of a windy path, and it has been, but Headbands Pro, I've been running it for 10 years, and it actually got acquired. And Scott, I don't know if you even know that, but it's not public yet, but we're here. It got acquired last year. And that was when I started to think about, what was next. I have Mic Drop Workshop, which is my online course that I wanted to keep continuing to grow. And one of the things that I did was I wanted to find a new way to teach, but not through more answers, but through questions. I know that so much of what we absorb today is answers, do this before you wake up, like 5 things every millionaire does before you've eaten breakfast. And I was like, man, I need to be asked more questions. And so I created what I called a pathway for my students in Mic Drop Workshop. And I said, okay, if you all answer these 21 prompts, at the end of it, you'll have your keynote talk written. And that was, how I mapped out these writing prompts to feed them into writing a keynote. And they did, and they were like, Jess, this was amazing. Do you have more pathways we can take? Do you have a book writing pathway? Do you have, something to get over my imposter syndrome? Like, what other pathways can you create? And so that's when I started talking to some of my other entrepreneur friends who were like, I could create a pathway, about prepping for, a meeting or getting ready for your week or whatever was their area of expertise. And so people were really excited about this idea of not just like going and writing down your thoughts, but being prompted to create something. And so I started Prompted last year, and we just actually launched in February. So it's very new, but you can go on and go through our pathway library, pick any topic you want, and get prompts by experts in that topic to help you get to where you want to go. But I know that writing for me is like, it helps me get out of my head. It's almost like, maybe some of you can relate, when there's a thought that you are making so big in your head. And it's like when you were a kid and you're sure in the middle of the night that there is a monster in your closet. And it's like, you just keep, the more you lay in bed, the more this monster exists in your closet. And then finally, you know, either your parents come in or you get up, you turn the lights on to realize that it's not there, and you look in the closet. For me, journaling is a lot of just looking in the closet. Like, you sometimes make things so much bigger in your head, or, oh, that could never be me. I could never write a book. I could never start a podcast. It's like, when you put it on paper, you realize a lot of your fears are just that. That's it. They're fears. They're not facts.
No, it's amazing. And I think, you know, journaling, I'm excited to really dive into it, because I think that that's kind of what I need, are those prompts to help me stay consistent. And I think that's one of the things that I'll get from Prompted, which is really cool and a very, very good idea.
And you'll have some pathways on there, which I'm very excited about. Yes.
Very excited, very excited. So you spent 3 years, you, Jake, and Ollie, in an Airstream, which are very cool, traveling around. So I'm curious, what made you do that? What did you learn from that experience? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's one of those things. Mayon's living that dream right now, but I think it's something that's very common that people think about doing, but they never actually do it like you did.
Yeah. Well, I would say that it was almost a rite of passage in my family. So my parents lived in an RV. They lived in an RV for 8 years. They're also entrepreneurs. They sold their company and sold their belongings, and they moved into an RV. My sister lived in a van for 3 years. And so it was almost like, okay, now it's my turn. But what I think was a really interesting thing that we did when we got the idea, it started as a book tour. So we were going to go around, you know, to different bookstores and speaking events for Chasing the Bright Side, and do it for a couple months, and got this idea, you know, to do this Airstream book tour. And of course, once you have a big, scary idea, there are a million reasons not to do it. Like, I'm sure so many of you have something you want to do, and you can think of tons of reasons why it wouldn't work. And that's exactly what I started to think. I'm like, well, how will we get Wi-Fi? What will I do? You know, how do I travel to speaking events? And so I immediately started to talk myself out of it. And one of the things that I tell people who have a business idea and they're not sure if they should start it, is like, well, what would happen if you just tried it on, you know, for 1 week, 1 month, you know, give yourself a set time frame. And if by the time your timer goes up and you're not feeling it, permission to leave. No harm, no foul. Go back to whatever it is you're doing before. You now have more information than you did. Or that timer will go off, that 1 week or 1 month will be up, and you don't even realize like the alarm in the background, because you are so far in a state of flow. And so that's what we decided to do, was like, what if we just tried it on for a month? And we said, okay, like, we are going to go live in an Airstream. What do we need to do? Okay, we need to figure out how to lease out our place. We need to find storage. How do we get Wi-Fi? And so we started almost crossing off of the list of all of our reasons that we wouldn't do it, and just faced them head on. And of course, if something was becoming big enough to where it wasn't, you know, it wouldn't work, then that's fine, no harm, no foul. But then sure enough, a few months down the road, we actually partnered with Airstream and took off in an Airstream on a 3-year trip, and just got back in September. And so it was truly, it was an experience that will shape the rest of my life. And I'm sure, I think it was Mayan who said that she was on the road too. And so many things that you said, I resonated with. And I would say that the things that stood out the most on the trip were the least expected. So it wasn't like, you know, seeing Glacier National Park or the Tetons, which was all incredible. I mean, one of them was when Chasing the Bright Side came out, we were parked in Las Vegas, which I'm not a gambler. Vegas is not really my style. And, but it was Vegas has a great airport that is kind of in the middle, and you can fly to a lot of different places. And so I was going everywhere for this book tour. And so we ended up staying at this like rinky dink RV park on the outskirts of Vegas, where you could get your checks cashed next to a McDonald's, like right next door, for 3 months, because I needed to fly in and out so much. And we were parked beside this husband and wife duo who were in their mid 70s, and they had been on the road together for 15 years. And they kind of took us in as their kids / grandkids. We would have dinner with them almost like 3 nights a week. And we ended up a year later meeting up with them again in Oregon, and they became like our road warrior buddies. And I've actually never shared this story, so I apologize if I'm getting emotional, but they actually ended up passing away at the same campsite that we met them. You probably heard the story on the news. There was a man who went and robbed a dispensary and then went on a killing rampage in Oregon, and they were out for their morning walk that we would do with them every time we were with them. And so when I like think about my trip, like I just think about how much they taught me, and how so much of like adventure and exploring is like not what's out your window, but who you're sitting beside. And it's just, they left, it goes back to those hard times, you know, excuse to do less or the reason to do more. And they have like, their names are Tony and Linda Oyster. And they have left such a mark on me that I'll never forget. So yeah, that's all I can say about that one.
Thank you for sharing that. And I didn't know that. What a tragedy. But I think, you know, like anything, we all learn from those experiences. And I think,
yeah,
you know, the resiliency and what we learn through adversity, you know, really affects us so profoundly for the rest of our lives. And I'm sure that your interactions with them, you know, are certainly going to do that for you.
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm lucky to have met them, and it makes you also want to just say hello to people more. I don't know about any of you, but during the pandemic, you know, we all became a bit of hermit crabs. Even just wearing masks, it made it okay to walk by someone and not say, hey, how are you? You know, and we almost lost a little bit of that. And Tony and Linda, they would just talk to everyone. And so it made me more aware of how I just interact with people, because it's something that's harder to maintain, especially through a pandemic.
It's amazing. So you're a long way from 70, to put it mildly. But it's crazy when you think of all the things that you've already accomplished. I mean, that's a lifetime for most people. That's not even a lifetime for most people. Those are some things that, you know, most people could only dream of. So yeah. I'm assuming that you see the future very optimistically, but tell me a little bit about like what's next now? I mean, obviously Prompted, I think is such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Tell me what do you think is next?
You know, I will admit I am a little tired of myself. And I was getting a little burnt out, and I wasn't sure why, because I truly love what I do in starting businesses and speaking to people. And I think I realized that my definition of success was how far I could reach. You know, how many stages can I speak on? How many book deals can I get? How many businesses can I start? And that success is limiting when it's only your own bandwidth, only your own wingspan. And I realized what would get me so energized is when I can use the things that have worked for me and teach them to other people so then they can go do that thing. And so with Mic Drop Workshop and with Prompted, where it's sharing thought and teaching others to create what they want to create or do what they want to do, that almost is, it's not like, oh, what's our revenue goal this year?
Yep.
It's creating an ecosystem of thought leaders. And that's what gets me really excited, is like not how far I can reach, but what I can use to help other people reach. And I know that sounds a little, Hakuna Matata, but it really is something that I think is just what my next phase of life is. And even going younger than that, I have a kid's book coming out in November. Again, you guys are some of the first to know. We haven't even announced this yet, but a teen book for kids called Create Your Bright Ideas. And it's about how they can start looking at the world around them, identifying problems, and figuring out business ideas to help solve them. So that's where my head's at now. It's not like what can we add to the Jess show, but I think that people who have amounted to anything should take it as a responsibility to put in the belay at the top of the mountain and throw the rope down. How can you help other people get here? Because you now have a line of vision, a line of sight that they don't have. So that's where my head's been at. So it's not as much of a hard, tangible goal as it is like, what can I teach now that I've done?
Yeah. So it's a direction for you.
Yeah.
And I think, I just posted about this yesterday because I was talking to Randy about applied learning. And, we bring these amazing people like yourself that have accomplished so much. And I just, so the post was basically, reading the book is a waste of time. Listening to the podcast is a waste of time. Like all this stuff, it's a waste of time if you don't apply it. Like you have to do something with it. So, I guess for everybody in our community, that's one of the things that we want to do is, listening to these amazing, inspirational people. And we just had Tony, who I know is your buddy, who
good friend of mine. Yeah.
Loves you to death. It's like, wow, we got all these unbelievable nuggets, but if you just collect them and you don't do anything with them, like you're robbing yourself and you're robbing the world of an opportunity. So you have to apply that learning. And I love that you're at that point where, you just want to teach and you want to give people a line of sight to things that you've already experienced.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that, I'm, done for the day, but I think I'm in a season. And I think that that's something else that's really important to think about is like, everything's a season. We think like so often that our life is like putting a flag in the ground, or I'm no longer, doing this, I'm doing that. And if we can just treat our passions and our work like a season, we can enjoy it while it's here. And then also just keep having room for change. Maybe I'll want to do another, book this fall or something. But right now, I want to help teach people how to write books. Like I'm hosting a workshop tonight about that. That's what I'm really excited about, is like, hey, I got a book deal with HarperCollins. Let me show you how I did it, because I'm not the only one with ideas out here. But it's all just a season. And I think that's comforting too.
It's a cool way to think of it. Probably the best example I could use is if any of you don't follow Jesse Itzler, I would really recommend that you follow Jesse. So he's a good friend of mine. And if you look at the arc of his career, it is season after season after season, like things that are so disconnected. But he squeezes every ounce out of that. And then he moves on to something sometimes that has absolutely nothing to do with what he was doing before. And I just see him as an example of somebody who's very happy, living an incredible life. but kind of just gently goes from one season to the next and
Yeah.
doesn't really look back that much and doesn't mourn the past and doesn't kind of like romanticize it, but just keeps moving into these new seasons of his career. So if you're not following Jesse, I'd definitely recommend that you do so.
Yeah, I have a lot to learn from him, because I will admit that there is a little bit of guilt, that happens
Yeah.
when you want to move on. I started Headbands of Hope when I was 19 and loved it. But as we approached the 10-year mark, I realized that like my business passion is not in like consumer products, anymore. In fact, I am really awful about the visualization of like product design and what's the new cutting edge hair accessory that we're going to create. And so it was almost a tough pill to swallow, because I was like, wait, does this mean I don't care about the mission? Does this mean I don't care about, helping kids with illnesses? Of course it doesn't mean that. But I think every single season of our life and every time we engage with something, it doesn't matter if it was a positive or negative, good or bad experience, we're collecting data and we are learning more and more about like what lights us up and what we never want to do again. Like, I don't think I will ever start another consumer product company.
Yeah.
Like supply chain issues are not the kind of issues that I love to have. But I also think it's important to note that when you do evolve and when you do change and when you do start over, you're not starting over to have zero problems. You're starting over to have new problems.
Yeah.
And we want that easy button. It's like, okay, I'm out of this. I'm starting over. I'm not going to have these problems anymore. You're going to have new ones. And so I think that by making decisions of like, what problems do I want to have instead of how do I have no problems, is a really helpful way to think about like pivoting and evolution in your work and just in life in general.
This is a great time to go to Q&A. I saw a lot of people literally when you were saying that, their heads dropped down and I could see people starting to write. That was phenomenal.
I'm so
so
glad.
we're going to open it up for some Q&A. And our first, I know we've got a question from our new entrepreneur, Teddy in California. Teddy, you're up with Jess.
Jess, thanks so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I wanted to go back to optimism is a strategy, and it's something that we can train. So my question is, what does your process look like for training optimism?
Yeah. So there is this test that I like to do. And what I do is whenever I have something that I'm chasing, something that I want, something that I want to work towards, I imagine that I get it. Let's say it's, I don't know, a big speaking engagement or revenue goal, whatever it might be. I imagine that I got it. And then I think, if no one knew it was me, if I removed my name from that success, would it still matter? And that test, by like putting anonymity to the things that you want to create, really tells you if you're doing something based on how it looks or based on how it feels. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't pursue accolades or press or things that are like externally driven, but I'm saying that they shouldn't be our final destination. And so by like doing that test of if I got what I wanted and I couldn't publish it on LinkedIn, would it still matter, is a really good way to kind of recalibrate your compass and be like, is this working towards something that I truly care about that's going to leave a mark? Or is this something that would just be nice to have in terms of image? Because it's in the world that we live in, it's really easy to go down an image driven path. I've been down it. I still dabbled down it sometimes. And so we have to really remind ourselves, like, are we doing this just to have our name on it, or are we doing it because it actually matters? So that's one test that you can do.
Love it. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Randy Ostro, Florida, you're up.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jess. Two quick comments and then a question. First, Scott McGregor defines a legend as someone who leaves a legacy. You're clearly a legend. Comment number
Thank
2,
you.
my daughter is named Jess, and she will be watching this with me this weekend.
I love it.
And what you said earlier is like jumped off the page because I make notes when you said that this can't be the story.
Mhm.
Okay. And what I'm wondering is, because we all have circumstances in our lives where we go, well, this can't be the story, right? So to remedy that, did you figure out what you wanted the story to really look like and then kind of reverse engineer it? Like, oh, okay, if that's not going to happen, then I know that I have to be princess, whichever princess, I don't remember what you said, and I know what that looks like. So here's the 10 steps I need to take to make it a reality. You figured out what the destination looked like first, yeah?
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a really good way to go about it. So I think that instead of having the actual destination of what I wanted, I love the term better. So how do I make this 1% better, 2% better? Because when we sometimes approach something as to like, how do we solve this problem? A lot of times things can't be solved. I couldn't wave a magic wand and cure her cancer and send her off to Disney World, but I'm like, I can try to make this better. I think it's a Steven Pinker quote where it's like, we will never live in a perfect world, but it's not romantic or naive to work towards a better one. And so that's what my first default is now in the face of a hard time like that, is what does better look like? Not perfect, not solved, but better. And so for me, that was putting on a costume and going to her house was better. But I think that that's also some grace that we can give ourselves in problems and tough scenarios, is like, we're not here to solve, we're not here to win the Super Bowl. How do we just get the first down, and then another one? So better is a word that I use a lot in those scenarios.
Thank you. It's excellent. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'm glad. So your daughter goes by Jess. Not a
She
lot of girls
does?
go by Jess. I love it.
She is Jessica, but she goes by Jess. Are you Jessica
That's
too?
me. I'm Jessica, but I go by Jess. There we
When
go.
she graduates from college in 5 years, I'm going to have her come and intern for you.
Absolutely. I will send the application.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Yeah.
Mayan, I'm going to call on you because I'm curious what your reaction is to this conversation. And you guys are living a little bit of a similar life. So I was just curious if you had any thoughts.
That's perfect. I was
share.
just gonna post in the chat that I had a question. Yeah, I think a lot of your mindset and the way you look at things, Jess, is very similar to how I look at things. And I particularly loved what you said about collecting data, because I noticed as I was growing up, I was doing all of these things that were against the grain of the message that you're supposed to pick one lane and just focus in that one lane. And in line with that, or in combination with that, thinking about how collecting data in different areas allows us to ask new questions. So if you think about the scientific method, that's what it is. You create a hypothesis, you do an experiment that hopefully allows you to generate a new hypothesis. And in all of this, we end up being driven towards something. And I think a lot of that something has to do with our identity. And I'm curious to know if you've spent time reflecting on who it is that you're driving yourself to become in this evolutionary process of asking new questions, collecting new data, and pushing the ball forward, going towards better. What is better driving towards from an identity perspective for you?
Yeah, great question. A couple things came to mind, and someone was just saying this, and I'm sorry I forget the name, but just about legacy and thinking about who I want to become. I don't want to win the race. I want to pass the baton. And I think that it's like a new way to look at life. And I kind of was alluding to this, before, where it was like, I want to not just like run faster, better, stronger. I want to advance something. So when it's at the end of my life, I can pass the baton and say, yeah, I moved the needle, for this. And for me in this season of my life and what it has been, it's women in thought leadership. but I would say that who I want to become. Have you ever listened to how I built this before,
Yeah.
or has anyone? Okay, yeah,
Love
a
it.
couple of you.
Great podcast.
Founders of Ben and Jerry's were on there. You can probably take a guess at what their names were, but I remember a quote that the question to them was something along the lines of like, would you do it all over again? Like, did you enjoy it? And he said, it's like you're being dragged down a river and you reach for like a branch to save yourself. When you're doing that, you rarely ask yourself, am I having a good time? And I remember him saying that, and I was like, and he talked about how he wished that he would have enjoyed it more. And so I think that I want to build a legacy, but I'm also not willing to sacrifice like my own mental well-being to do it. And so and this is kind of new for me, is like, I also want to do this and have a good time, because we can't just will ourselves to work hard. That's why we're in a, burnout epidemic right now. Willpower doesn't work like a lot of times we think it does. There was a study in the Harvard Business Review about willpower, and they said, usually you think that you have like this much willpower, this is my really obnoxious water bottle because I'm terrible at drinking water, and then once that is out, it's out. But actually, willpower isn't as much of a depleted resource as it is an emotion and things that we feel. And so I want to feel something when I work. I don't want to just will myself to work. And I know that's when the good work will come, is when I'm having a good time, I'm enjoying the process. So I think falling in love with the problems and not getting frustrated by them and being curious has been helpful in that. And that's the image of who I want to be, is not just an entrepreneur who's living a legacy, but one that is also enjoying it along the way. Because if you're not, then what's this all for?
That's awesome. I have one quick follow-up question, if that's okay, and there's time.
Yeah, good by me. Yeah.
So when it comes to legacy, typically there's kind of two ways to do that. One is through developing new tools. The other is by discovering new information. Are you intentionally driving towards one of those, or notice that you are leaning towards one or the other?
That's interesting. I never thought about it like that before. I would say discovering new tools would be my answer, because that is, I do feel like prompted is going to be, and I know that I like roll my eyes when other entrepreneurs say like disruptor, but I do feel like prompted is going to disrupt the self-improvement industry, where it's not just going to be answers anymore, it's going to be questions. And so I think I'd like to think I'm creating a new tool for people that need it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're going to Jordan in Atlanta. Jordan, you're up.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, thank you so much, Jess, for sharing your story and your journey. Really appreciate it. And really the question I have for you is, you've had a ton of success and I'm sure a ton of failures. So what is the biggest lesson that you have learned to date that you're willing to share with us?
Biggest lesson that I have learned to date is that I would say that success is not what it looks like to others. It's only what it feels like to you. And so by understanding the difference between achievements and success, I think is the greatest gift we can give ourselves as working professionals. Like, achievements are tangible milestones. Maybe you get a promotion, or maybe you hit a certain revenue goal, or you get an award, and all of those things are great. But when we put that as like the goalpost, as our final destination, we will always come up short, because there will always be another accolade. In fact, it's kind of like a false summit, when you reach something that you wanted, that you thought was the top, only to realize that gives you a viewpoint for what's more out there. So achievements aren't our final destination, but success is something that can't be measured. It can only be felt. So that's why optimism and doing that anonymity test, it's like so important to be able to define what success feels like for us. And it's individualized and it's personalized to everyone. And I would say that that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned, that is a muscle I try to continue to sharpen, because that differentiation is key.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. What is success? Most people say, what does success look like to you versus what does success feel like
What
to
does it
you?
feel like? Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Libby in DC, you're up with Jess.
Hi, thank you so much for letting us hear your story, Jess. I have a couple comments before I get to my question, but I love also what you just said of what does success feel like, and optimism is a muscle. To me, resilience and mental willpower, all of those things are all muscles that need to be worked on. And anytime I hear something, I have 3 boys, and I always just try to think of how can I start to teach my kids these things, because I think, you know, obviously emotional maturity comes with age, but at the same time, you know, our kids are fed such a different image of what success means. And to them, it's all achievements. It's the YouTuber who's made $1 million the next day. It's, you know, they're used to instant gratification. So kind of comes into my question with you that, I mean, I think, you know, largely there's a generation of children, and I'm going to say, especially with boys, that are not reading, that are not writing. And it's a skill that's becoming lost. I mean, even with my own boys, they're voice texting. They have Grammarly that checks their grammar. And could you speak? I know you said we're the first to know, but I'm excited to hear about this teen book that you have out, because I think, you know, maybe some of those things are exercises that I could use with my children to help them develop those skills, because I just don't think they're interested in it anymore. You know, they want to do their assignment and move on. They don't want to spend any time thinking about it. And I'm really afraid we're raising a generation of kids who can't critically think.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating to me. And part of the heartbeat for this book is like understanding that a lot of these kids, I've done workshops with little kids before about entrepreneurship. A lot of times they have better ideas than adults because they're not thinking in limits. And so I wanted to be able to give them that roadmap with Create Your Bright Ideas. And, you know, I can't really speak to, I don't have kids of my own yet, but so I can't really speak to like how we change it, but I do just keep going back to this North Star that I've been chasing right now with Prompted and with Create Your Bright Ideas is, are we prompting them to answer questions or to think critically? Because sometimes it's just those questions that will spark something. So in this book, you know, they read about headbands of hope in my story, but simultaneously they're getting prompts and worksheets and coloring books to create their own ideas. And so I think asking questions is just what I'll say has been top of mind for me right now, not just with kids, but with adults. Like, instead of telling them what to do, are we asking them something that maybe will spark an idea?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love it. Our last question of the day, we're going to Howard K.
Hi there, I'm here. Thank you again, Jess. So you really made me think about something when you were talking about success, and I'm wondering if there's a way that you think about in this light, and I'm not quite sure how to verbalize it. When I think of success, I think about it before it's obtained, before I achieve it. And I equate it to, for all of you that may have any kind of eating disorders like me, meaning anytime you go on a diet, at least for me, I cannot stop thinking about my next meal. It's just at the top of my head, food, 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 food. And I think as it is so overly consuming to me, I can then transfer that into, if I'm working on something, if I have that same overwhelming feeling like I do about food, which is in a negative way, but when I'm working on in a positive way, and as I'm going through a deal, let's say, and I'm putting things together and I see it building, I can already see the end of the light, the end of the tunnel, and I can get so excited that whether it really happens or not, I've already convinced myself it's going to be successful. does that make sense? It was weird how I
Definitely does.
thought about that, but when you were talking about what does success feel like, it doesn't feel like it with the eating disorder. But if I take that same type of overwhelming feeling and apply it to success, I feel it there. So I was wondering if you have similar ways of making an analogy to that.
Well, what I was thinking when you said that was actually a study that I read. I feel like my next book is going to be about I'm calling it the curse of next. It's like, what's the next thing? It's the thing that keeps us going, but it's also the thing that takes us out of the present. And so you thinking about like that next meal, is what I'm thinking about. And there was a really interesting study that like we want to achieve things because we want to feel a certain way. And we think that when we achieve that thing, that's when we'll feel it. But we actually get the dopamine hit before we achieve it. And so when it's on the horizon, when we're working towards something that we want, is when we actually feel the feeling that we've been chasing, not when we get it. And so that is what I've been interested in, is like, how do we love the process, and the destination or the arrival point is like a cherry on top of a process that we've already enjoyed. So I think that might allude to a little bit of what you were saying, but it definitely struck something for me in that study.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely love it. So, Jess, we are a community of about 500 people in 29 countries and
That's
growing
amazing.
very rapidly. What can we do to help support you and be a resource to you? Because you are amazing, and we cannot thank you enough for carving out an hour out of your busy day to spend it with us.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate it. This was awesome. Your questions were so on point. I thank you for your support. Really, I would love for all of you to try Prompted, and we just launched. Let me know what you think. So if you go to prompted.io, check it out, and you can use the code BRIGHT and get 1 month free, and let me know what you think. And if any of you are interested in being a thought leader on Prompted, like Scott is, you can reach out to us and we can make that happen.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I just got my email the other day to start with my prompts, and I'm excited to do it. But yeah, I would encourage everybody, take Jess up on that generous offer and go in there, put in Bright, get your month free, and check it out. I think it could be a game changer.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jess, so much. We appreciate it. Everyone, if you want to stay after for a little bit of overtime, feel free to stay. But Jess, thanks so much. We really
Thanks, Scott.
appreciate you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you, Jess.
Very cool. We definitely had a couple quotes in there where I saw people's heads go down and pens start moving quickly.
That is exactly it, Scott. I was sitting here taking my notes because like I'm old school, like I have to do, pen and paper, and what a phenomenal human being. And I'm just so happy to hear, beautiful little, just beautiful life lessons. And obviously, she's, years and years younger than me. And just to have started out on that path so early, she's nailing it. And that's awesome. And so thanks for asking her.
Yeah, I think she's defining success a little bit differently. And I like the whole thought about the seasons of your life and the seasons of your career. That was really meaningful to me. Because I think we think, okay, like whatever it is, this is it forever. And sometimes that can be limiting and pretty daunting. Rather than thinking like, okay, I'm going to enjoy this season, and then whatever's coming next, I'm going to enjoy that as well.
I'm really glad that I didn't have a chance to ask my question because I was going to fangirl all over her. I don't even think I could have controlled myself.
I like
Oh, that's
It was
awesome.
too much. It was so good.
I know, total girl crush. I hear you.
I like the thing, Robert Owens, I thought of you when she talked about passing the baton, because I see, you know, you're in that season where you just want to give people your knowledge and you want to kind of pass that baton. I was wondering, I don't know, anything that you wanted to share with us from your recent trip to South Africa? You're on mute.
Yeah, first, yeah, she's really refreshing. And it's fun to get her perspective at her age.
Yeah.
And defining success is a real interesting thing that we've all had to work through at different stages. So South Africa for me was a real interesting thing because I have not spoken in high schools maybe in 30 years. And they lined up 9 high schools for me and 2 junior highs. And they just said, just talk. And I said, what do you want me to say? And they said, just talk. And I was amazed that the kids listened and they didn't fidget. And then they stood in line afterwards to ask questions, which were the questions that we would expect. I just lost my dad to cancer. You've dealt with pain. How'd you work through that? Or I'm over there's blacks, coloreds, and whites as the political groups. The blacks live here, the coloreds live here. It's 400 years of interracial stuff. Anyway, kids were being bullied. And so the white girl and a colored girl were being bullied for being friends by white girls. And so they came up and said, you know, how would you help us when we're being bullied because we're not supposed to like each other? And so we worked through that. One guy came up and said, you know, my dad's beating my mom. What would you want me to, what do I do? And the same things we have in every generation, they just want to line up and say, where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? And it just brought a lot of thoughts to me that I'm in that season at 70 when success is different and the seasons are different. And I felt, looking back, I felt seasons like from 30 to 45 was just a drive. You know, it was a season, and then it began to wane about 45 to 55. The wisdom kicked in versus the testosterone, or the life experiences. You found this, you couldn't do the same thing the same way because you just weren't the same, and you saw things different. And my 60s were one way, but just the day I turned 70, something changed inside me in the sense of seasons. Mm-hmm. And I think as we're growing, we just think we're going to be like this the rest of our lives, or this is who we are. This is what defines us. And if those of you younger than me could think on what she said and was talked about, that there really are seasons, and you come into a season, Scott, where this is it, and it's working, and it's hot, and it met a need, and it came through the pandemic, but it'll change and morph. Yep. And hold it loosely, you know, because, you know, people or God will want to help you change and direct that and make something more out of it. It won't stay the same. So South Africa for me was just my 16th trip since the 90s. And kids are kids, families are families. If you see the Ron DeSantis big thing in Florida today, he started this fatherhood commission. And Tony Dungy was there standing beside him at the press conference. And just this whole fathering thing of the kids that are in jail and prison, over 50% never had a father. And we in the special ops community, in NATO, in the Western Alliance, over 50% of the kids that want to become our special ops kids did not have a father in the home.
Really?
Yeah. And so when you look at these kids and you think they look normal, there's some pieces missing.
Yeah.
And unless you plan for those pieces to be missing and plan to help them get those pieces put in place, we're going to have the same issues that we've been having for generations that won't be met. And she's young, and it's fun, like my 5 kids, to listen to the way the generations think.
Yeah.
And be in my season where I can say, what can I give you? How can I help? What do you want to learn? It was really funny. I was asked to speak to a group of 50 IT success salesmen and executives. And I said, what do you want me to say? And they said, just talk. I said, sweet. So here's all these guys, they're in this room with foosball machines and all kinds of stuff, and they would come in the office only once a week and they're blah, blah, blah. So they bring them in this room. And I said, well, I'll tell you what I know. I know you're smart. I know you're gifted. I know you're hot. I know you're creative. I know all these positive things. But I also know that you're a train wreck. You're on porn and you're doing drugs and you're on alcohol, and your rushes are so hot that when you come off that rush, you have to find something quickly to bring you into a place. So you look for a quick fix. And so I said, I haven't seen very many guys that have been hot 10 years in a row. And very rarely do I find guys that are hot for 20 years in a row. And the 50 guys that I've buried didn't think that they were going to be dead when they died. And so my suggestion to you is, you may be hot now and driving that Porsche out there and looking good, and everything's going good, but you redline that machine too long, you'll blow it. And they just looked at me and they lined up and said, I'm an alcoholic. I'm on my third marriage. I'm blah, 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 blah. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And as a 70-year-old, I just smiled, sweet, you got issues, dude. You better get it together. How can I help you? And they just want to talk. I mean, they must have lined 15 deep. You look at them, they look so hot, so good, so gifted, so smart, so full of accolades and promotions. And yet inside there's a honeycomb of just, but.
Yeah.
So I took a lot away from South Africa. Sorry for rambling, but it's
Love
just kids, it's just people.
Love it. Robert Anderson, you're having quite a season, or I should say your son Bear is having quite a season. So Robert Anderson is the son. Bear is playing right now lacrosse for, I think, what are they ranked? Third in the country?
Yeah, we just bumped up to second in the country, and they're doing really well.
And they are killing it. I love it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Who's up next? Who's number one in the country?
Culver Hall. They're out of Indiana. They're a factory. They're similar to IMG out in Indiana, except they do a great job academically. So hopefully we'll see them towards the end of the year, Memorial Day weekend. But it's such an honor and a privilege, and that's a great segue. Definitely a season right now for sure.
I love it. Well, enjoy every minute of it. I know you are. You've got incredible kids. Incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's such a privilege, and thing that community such as this, it just gives me the ability to feed into them, and it just solves so many challenges that I feel and that I see, and it gives me on high to help them jump some hurdles that they don't even know are in front of them yet. And I can't even express how grateful I am to everyone in the community. Really, it's incredible.
Yeah, follow if you're on Instagram, follow Robert on Instagram so you can see the updates of what's going on in his life. But he's always got some incredible words of wisdom in his stories, and I absolutely love everything about him. Amazing human being.
Brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Super awesome, man.
Cool. Great seeing you guys. Thanks for hanging in there, Robert.
Just a couple of things. I journaled for about 30 years.
Yep.
But one of the things that was the best was I got a book for each one of my kids. And so I would write to them during the week what was going on in their lives, elementary school, junior high, and high school, and then college. And I'd tell what I was thinking about them at that time. And I'm going to give that to them when I die.
Oh my God.
So I have these books that chronicle their growing up and their
I feel like a
grades.
horrible parent now.
I know. I'm sitting here going,
Thanks, Robert. Really, you just ruined my day.
Wait. By the way, I got one. For my 21st birthday, my mom had always kept a cassette tape. And for my 21st birthday, she gave it to me. And Robert, you're about to overwhelm your children. I almost think you shouldn't wait till you pass away to let them see it, so you can see how meaningful it is to them to get it. It was wild, absolutely wild when I got it.
Wait, just to
Amazing.
I just want to piggyback on that. Scott McGregor, I spoke to you on a Zoom call yesterday. Reach behind you and grab that book, Live Rich, that Howard's dad wrote. Okay, because I just want to say one thing, and I paid tribute to him last week, but I'm going to do it again. Howard K's father, I had the privilege of working with them for a lot of years, and the message that Scott posted about on LinkedIn yesterday about applied knowledge, that's nothing new. Barry K was teaching me that in 2004, like talking at seminars to people and going, listen, it's great that you're here and it's really nice that you took notes, but if you don't go and apply this stuff, it's not even worth it. And the book that you're holding, Scott, that Live Rich book, it wasn't even really a business book. It was more about life and how to tell people, I love you. You don't know, Howard, you know, you don't know when is the last time you're going to get a chance to see somebody. So you say those things to those people, you write those handwritten notes or whatever the case may be. And I love the fact that it's all kind of coming together in this format. It's very exciting. So
yeah, it's very cool. Howard, thank you for the book. I haven't had a chance to reach out yet. I just got it yesterday, and it's
My pleasure.
I cannot wait to dive in.
You'll love
Yeah.
it.
We